Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to look at the new Scarlet and Violet DLC that will probably be announced very soon, as Pokemon Day is only less than 2 weeks away. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you did enjoy this video, and let's just get into the speculation. So as we look into the Scarlet and Violet DLC, I kind of want to look back a few years to the Sword and Shield DLC, as that was kind of the first major expansion to a main series Switch game for the main series. So when we look back at the previous DLC, split into two parts, which was the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra. And the Isle of Armor was not, I'll be honest, in my opinion, not very good. I think it was kind of lackluster. We had Kubfu and we could choose which evolution we wanted it to evolve into. But it just wasn't interesting. It was just a whole bunch of battles with like a really crappy Pokemon. However, I will say the actual area itself was actually pretty interesting. Like, there's a lot of different routes you could go around, and I will always remember the fact that when you enter the Isle of Armor for the first time, you could see a massive whale lord in the sea, and that was just amazing. I actually love that. But when we look back to the Crown Tundra, however, that was actually a lot more interesting. We had a story with the Calyrex and like the two horse Pokemon, and that was pretty cool. And then we had the fusion, which was a pretty cool battle as well. And the music, oh, the music. However, again, for the DLC, like, I can see a pattern in the DLCs and third versions, is that they always add the legendary Pokemon from previous games into the DLC. And it is, at this stage now, it gets a little bit boring. Like, the legendaries are just not that interesting anymore because they're not as special. They're in every single game now. And we had it for BDSP, we had it for Sword and Shield, we had it for Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. It just, the list goes on. So I think probably in the next DLC or two, that's going to be probably in there. We'll be able to catch other legendary Pokemon from previous games, which kind of makes sense. I mean, it also adds to the VGC format in a later year, so that's probably going to happen. But when we think about the new stories and stuff, I think what they're going to do for this DLC is they're going to split it into two parts again. Like they did before with Sword and Shield. However, I also now think that they may expand the life of the game much further than Sword and Shield. So Sword and Shield had a year of DLC, whereas I feel like Scarlet and Violet might actually have 2 years of DLC. Purely because I think it kind of lines up quite nicely with the future after Scarlet and Violet. So if we have 2 DLCs that go within 2 years, so that'll be towards the end of 2024. 2025 will be, I suppose, the next big game. I think could potentially be another Legends game. That would give them 3 years, and Pokemon Legends did very well. What that could be, I'm not sure. Maybe Gold and Silver ones, I'm not entirely sure. But I think that gives them enough time to kind of focus their time on a Legends game. And then when we come to 2026, which is obviously the 30th anniversary of Pokemon, that's obviously going to be a big year. And I really do feel like they're going to do Gen 10 in 2026. Looking back over the last few years, they've been doing generations every 3 years or so. However, for this new one, I feel like, it's the 30th anniversary, it's Gen 10, it's going to be a massive game. And whether that will be on the Switch or not, I'm not entirely sure. It could maybe be on the next Nintendo Switch console as like one of the starting games to kind of really boost up the sales for the next Switch console. I really do think that they're really going to do 2 stories in the DLC, and it will be a lot larger than what we saw in the Sword and Shield ones. But from the leaks, I think there'll be some influence from Kalos. This also lines up with the 10th anniversary of the X and Y games this year, so that's also quite interesting. So I feel like we'll be splitting it into 2 stories, one about the 3rd legendary, which we haven't heard anything about really, where there's some hints potentially in some of the books in the school or academy you go to. When you terrestrialize your Pokemon, you see kind of like this kind of face on the jewel of the crown that your Pokemon wears when it terrestrializes. So yeah, I think one story will be about that, and I think the other story will definitely be about the Kalos connections. Now we know that in the main base game, in the top right corner of the map, there is a blacked off or boarded off area that you cannot reach, and that almost definitely will be DLC, which I think in the real world is actually Andorra, so that's in between Spain and France. and whether that will eventually lead into Kalos, I'm not entirely sure. That's an entire region they could do for a later game. So I think they will do parts of Kalos, and there will be influences from there, maybe even characters. But I feel like that will probably be part of the DLC, some type of Kalos connection. Now we know there's a few Kalos connections already. So near the border, there is actual Kalos Pokemon that you can find. I think it's like the 3 Kalos dragons that you can find there when near the border, which is actually kind of interesting. And I know some people have actually managed to get into the border using some like hacking techniques and stuff. So you can kind of find those videos on YouTube if you want, which is pretty interesting. So yeah, so I feel like they're going to do some more DLC for Kalos, and I think they might do it over the next few years. So I think potentially, as we know Andorra is already blocked off, I think that could be the first DLC that comes out, which would be obviously 2023's DLC. Now, in terms of release dates, that means that the first DLC will come out in November 2023, and the second DLC will come out in November 2024, or maybe earlier. That gives them a lot of time to really focus on the DLC. It kind of makes sense. Like, this game, Scarlet and Violet, sold a tremendous amount of copies. At the moment, it really could overtake the very first games that came out, Red and Blue, which is kind of insane. 20 million copies within its first month is already insane, and like it's already beaten some of the previous like main series games like Diamond and Pearl, Platinum, Black and White, and so on. So it kind of makes sense to kind of expand the DLC out a bit. However, this is the 10th anniversary of X and Y, which is obviously a big leap for the franchise. It went from 2D to 3D in 2013. So I feel like they definitely could put a little bit more effort into the Kalos connections there. Maybe with AZ as well, Area Zero, kind of link there as well. There's lots of things they could do for the next few years, and I'm really looking forward to it. So that's kind of it really, guys. So that's just me kind of rambling about the next few years for what I think Pokemon could bring. We're less than 2 weeks away from Pokemon Day, so we will see some form of news in the next few weeks. So that's kind of it, guys. So if you guys did enjoy this video, there are some other videos related to Pokemon and Nintendo on my channel already. So if you want to have a look at those, they're already in playlists that you can kind of view already. And make sure to subscribe if you did enjoy this video and other videos as well, so you can keep up to date with what I upload. So that's kind of it, guys. So I want to say thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys very soon.